It might just be the adults who feel the biggest shockwaves. We're watching a world-first experiment unfold in real time.
So, what's the big idea? Well, it's pretty straightforward, but the implications are huge. A flat-out ban on social media accounts for anyone under 16 years old. And yeah, they're saying no exceptions.
And don't think this is some far-off futuristic thing. The deadline is set, December 10th, 2025. You can literally hear the clock ticking for all the big tech companies that now have to figure this out.
Okay, so the official name is a bit of a mouthful, but what you really need to pay attention to is this little phrase, reasonable steps. It sounds kind of vague, right? Well, that's the point. It cleverly shifts the entire burden of figuring this out and enforcing it onto the social media platforms themselves.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at the new rules, break down exactly how this age verification stuff is supposed to work, dive into the surprising ways it's going to affect adults, talk about all the privacy red flags, and then we'll look at what this all means for the future of online Australia.
So this leads to the biggest question of all. How in the world do you prove someone's age online without just creating a privacy catastrophe? Let's get into the tech.
Yeah, this is the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? How are these platforms actually going to pull this off? The answer isn't some simple single solution. It's a really complex and honestly kinda invasive mix of different methods.
They're calling it a multifactorial approach. So step 1 is the easy part, just typing in your birthday when you sign up. But then step 2 gets interesting. AI is going to be watching your online behavior, trying to guess how old you are. And if it flags you, well, that's step 3. You'll have to prove your age, maybe with a government ID or even a video selfie.
And here's where it gets kind of messy. Just look at this. There's no single game plan. Meta's talking about video selfies. Snapchat is even exploring bank account verification. TikTok is putting a lot of faith in its AI. And then you have platforms like X and YouTube who are either pushing back against the law or arguing they shouldn't even be part of this whole thing. It is chaotic, to say the least.
And this is where we get to the real heart of the matter. Because, a law that's supposed to be about protecting kids, it's about to shake up the online world for every single adult in Australia. And look, this isn't some abstract problem. People are already talking about it. This comment from a user on Reddit kind of says it all. For a lot of adults, the sheer hassle of having to prove their age with an ID might just be enough for them to say, you know what, I'm out.
This really sums it all up, doesn't it? The stated goal is simple: protect kids. But the real-world impact, it's going to be felt by everyone, creating new hoops to jump through and some serious new privacy risks for every adult user.
And it's not just casual users who are worried. We're talking about the professionals, the people who make their living online. Jordan Barclay, a huge creator on YouTube, was incredibly direct. He basically said if advertisers get spooked and leave Australia, so will the creators. He's already thinking about moving.
And we're talking about serious money here. The social media industry in Australia is a $9 billion a year business. If creators and advertisers start to pull out, that could leave a pretty big hole in the country's digital economy.
Okay, and if you think this is just about your Instagram or TikTok feed, think again. This is where it gets really personal. These same rules could apply to search engines. Imagine needing to scan your face or prove your identity just to use Google. That fundamentally changes how we interact with the internet itself.
So naturally, all this new tech for checking IDs and scanning faces, well, it opens up a huge can of worms. It's kicking off a massive debate about privacy, bias, and a whole lot of unintended consequences.
Let's just run through the major red flags here, because there are a lot of them. First, the AI can be wrong, and it's often biased. Second, you're creating these giant, tempting databases of personal IDs and face scans, a goldmine for hackers. Third, who's to say this tech won't be used for advertising later? It could also lock out people who don't have easy access to digital IDs. And the biggest irony? It might just push kids away from the big platforms and into much darker, unregulated parts of the web.
And a lot of people are saying this whole thing was just a mess from the start. Digital rights advocate Samantha Floriani put it perfectly, saying the process was so rushed it made a mockery of how good policy is supposed to be made.
Which begs the question, is this technology even ready for prime time? I mean, seriously. The government ran its own trial and found what it called concerning evidence that some of these companies were collecting way too much personal info. They were basically creating the exact privacy risks everyone was worried about.
And maybe one of the most worrying parts is how this is all happening.
As one senator pointed out, these huge, staggering changes aren't even being passed as normal laws through Parliament. They're being made by unelected officials. That's a pretty big deal.
So, what does this all mean for the future? Where does Australia go from here? It really feels like the country is at a crossroads, running this huge, live experiment on its own digital life.
But, to be fair, there is another way to look at this. An information security pro on Reddit made a great point. The harms to kids online are real, and they are serious. So maybe doing something, even if it's flawed, is better than doing nothing. Maybe this is just the necessary, messy first step.
So really, you've got these two very different paths stretching out ahead. The hope is that this is the beginning of a truly safer internet for kids. The fear is that it doesn't really protect them, and in the process, it completely undermines the privacy and freedom of every adult online.
And it all boils down to this one final question for all of us. As we try to protect the most vulnerable, are we okay with building an internet where everyone, adult and child alike, has to constantly prove who they are just to log on?
Look, one thing is for sure. Australia has kicked off a massive, unprecedented experiment with the internet. And whether you like it or not, every single person who goes online there is now a part of it.